Hello, everybody. It is my honor to open this session. Apparently, we can start now. My name is Anna Guerman. I'm associate professor of the University of Beira Interior. I work at the Aerospace Science Department, and my research area is astrodynamics. Apart from giving classes on several engineering subjects, I also do research in attitude and orbital control of space systems and focus mostly on attitude control systems for spacecraft, dynamics of large space structures, formation flying, and related subjects, which are very interesting as well as I'm concerned. And it's a great pleasure to do this research and very interesting. I am also working for International Astronautical Federation. I chair the Astrodynamics Symposium there and Astrodynamics Committee too. And I'm a member of International Academy of Astronautics. So it's a very rewarding work and very interesting one. I would like to add that we prepare international astronautical congresses, and I invite everybody to participate in this congress, which will take place in Dubai in October this year, hopefully in 3D version, not online. And I am very pleased to be here, and I appreciate very much. I'm very grateful for invitation to be here and to open this session. I would like also to congratulate the Atlantic International Research Center for this great initiative, for this very interesting and very important series of webinars, which is now at its 50th edition, and with extraordinary presenters. And I hope you will have a great time here, hearing and watching presentations on most interesting subjects related to space. Before we start, I was asked to remind you that all questions that you would like to ask should be asked through questions and answers box, not through the chat. And during this session, we will collect these questions and they will be answered afterwards. So please write what you are interested in, ask your questions, and we will try to answer everything. And first of all, first presenter is Dr. Alfred Ng, who is an excellent researcher from Canadian Space Agency. He did his PhD in Canada and British Columbia quite a while ago. And since then, in '92, and since then he works in Canadian Space Agency in several projects. He coordinates many projects, including one very interesting project and that is connected to CubeSat developing and launching extraordinary project actually. Know some about it and enjoy it very much. And he also worked for IAF as a chair of Astrodynamics Committee. And I am sure you will find his presentation very interesting. Please, Alfred.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Air Center for this invitation. I feel really honored and humbled to be invited to present today. Second, I also would like to thank Anna Guerman. She is my dear friend, and she accepted the role to be the moderator only yesterday. We only asked her yesterday, and she gladly accepted it. Thank you for the last-minute invitation. Okay, as Anna mentioned, I work in the Canadian Space Agency. Or should I start now, or do you want to introduce also the next speaker now, Anna?
Well, I think I present Luis Gomes when he starts his presentation. I think you, well, that.
Okay. Okay, so
How
I'll
do you?
continue there. Yeah. Okay, I'll continue. Okay, because Okay. So my name is Alfred Ng. Okay, as Anna mentioned, I'm working in the Canadian Space Agency since 1992. So I've been in many roles. Now I'm the Deputy Director of the group called Engineering and Capability Demonstration. This morning, or this afternoon in Europe time, I am pleased to talk about a project which I've been leading with my colleagues since 2016. It's called the Canadian CubeSat Project. Okay, I hope you find this a very interesting project, and I'll be happy to answer any question at the end. Okay, I'm sharing my screen now. Okay, in the next 20 minutes, I'll give you like a quick history of this project and how we initiated the planning and how we implement this project and what are the challenges that we face during the course of the project, and finally give you like an update on where we are today. Before I start, I just want to give you a quick portrait of Canadian Space Agency. We were created in 1989 by the government of Canada. Okay, we are put under the Ministry of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development. Right now, we have about 600 employees around that number. Okay, 600 to 700 employees. Our headquarters is St. Hubert, which is just outside Montreal. Okay, it's about 15 minutes from Montreal. And we do have a full-scale environmental test facility for spacecraft integration and testing. But this one is called the David Frodder Laboratory. It is located in Ottawa, okay, in the west side of Ottawa. And we also have liaison offices in Washington, Johnson Space Center, and Paris too, okay? And also very interesting is that Canada is the only non-European country that is part of the ESA. So we have a very special status of ESA. Okay, we are the associate member of ESA. And we have been there for, I believe it's 42 years now. So we have a very long history working with ESA. Okay, we have a very unique relationship. So today I'm talking about this Canadian CubeSat project. I just want to give you a quick history of where this came from, okay? In 2016, our former president, he attended a small satellite symposium in Toronto. There he met the representative from NASA headquarters. He talked about in NASA, they initiated this project called 50 CubeSat from 50 states in 5 years, back in 2014. Okay, so this project was launched by NASA back in 2014. So after this symposium, this gentleman talked to our former president saying that, do you think that Canada can do something similar? Okay, so our president was quite intrigued by this idea. And this gentleman, following up to this conversation they had in Toronto, he wrote a long email to our former president saying that maybe you can consider doing like a CubeSat for every province. That would be a very interesting idea. So the former president said, okay, he passed this email to the Director General saying that, what do you think? Then the Director General forwarded this email to the next the director, what do you think? And my director forwarded the email to me saying that, make it work. So, okay, so that means that I was asked to take in charge of this project to come up with something similar. So when I first look at this idea, I love it. Okay, I have been like a strong proponent of a CubeSat. I still remember first time I came across CubeSat was listening to Bob Triggs in small set conference in Utah in year 2000. I still remember that. I believe this is the future. So that's why when I was given this opportunity, I said, oh, this is great. Now we can do something similar in Canada. However, I have to look carefully. Now we are in Canada. Canada is a big country. For those the audience today, especially from Europe, Canada is so big that we have 6 time zones. Okay, from the Pacific coast to Atlantic coast, we have 6 time zones. Okay, in fact, it is so big that if I take a flight from Montreal to London, it's about the same time when I take the flight to Montreal to Vancouver. It's almost the same time. So it give you the sense of how big Canada is, okay? We have 10 provinces, okay? So these are the provinces, we have 10 of them from coast to coast, 10. And then we have 3 territories in the up north here, okay? So this is already tell you it's a big time zone. Here I wrote like 5.5 time zone because the last time zone is only half hour ahead of the Atlantic. So it's not a full time zone. Another interesting thing about Canada is that we have 38 million population only. So for such a large country, we only 38 million people. Very, very small population. And the top 4 provinces account for 3/4 of the population, like the BC, Alberta, Quebec, and Ontario. The total population is 76% of all the population. So you can imagine that the other 6 provinces plus the territory, they have very small population, okay? And space industry, likewise, is only concentrated in 4 provinces. So it's not like every province has space industry, okay? And in academia, yes, space science is taught in all the provinces, but spacecraft engineering is not available everywhere, okay? So, but also, up north in territory, there's no space education or no space industry. Okay, so these are the challenges I have to think about it. Okay, when the president said, okay, make it work. I want not only he want like a CubeSat in every province. He said that try to think about what about the territories. Can we also have a CubeSat for every involving every territory? So that means that he is not looking at for 10, but he's looking for 13. So he said that I'd like to have like 13 CubeSats, okay, representing Canada from coast to coast in every province and every territory. So that was the challenge given to me. Okay, and finally, Canada has no launch vehicle. Okay, up to now we still don't have no launch vehicle. We have to rely on like the foreign company, foreign partner. So when the time 2016, I also, there was virtually very little CubeSat activities, okay, in the academia, okay. There is a non-profit organization called Canadian Satellite Design Challenge, okay. This is a non-profit organization organized competition for schools, for university, started in 2011. So then every time this competition has actually about 20 teams across Canada, about university team. So these are student teams, okay? They are tasked to build a 3U engine model, okay? 3U engine model. So they have about 20 months to do a 3U engine model. At the end, they'll bring the engine model to do a vibration test here. I can show here, like at the screen, you can see they do a vibration test in the David Florida laboratory. So this is the final step in the competition. And looking at this like competition, I found that they were only, although it has been started in 2011, there were only 15 teams in 5 provinces have participated. That means that there are 5 provinces have never touched CubeSat at all. So these are all the added challenges I have to think about it, okay? So basically here is summarized. Well, what do we want to do at the beginning? So at the beginning, the primary objective is saying that we want to offer this design, build, test, launch, and operate opportunity to students in all the provinces and territories. So the goal is looking at 13 CubeSats, okay? And since we know offhand that, okay, not everyone who has some experience, so we say that we'll open this idea to accept idea like for 1U, 2U, or 3U CubeSat. And further, we put in one difference. We try to differentiate from the Canadian Satellite Design Challenge in the sense that this Canadian CubeSat project, we call CCP, this must involve a professor or teacher, okay? They must be the principal investigator. They are responsible for supervising a student team to design, build, test, and operate the CubeSat, okay? That means that we must have someone identified as a PI to lead the project, okay? One reason is clear is that if you let the student manage the whole project, but student, their priority is still the academic portion, okay? So when they graduate, then who will take care? Whereas if we assign a professor to take care, the professor will kind of provide like the permanence to the project, okay? The professor will ensure that they will be there from the beginning to the end of the project, okay? So this is why we insist there must be a professor be the PI of the project. And during the planning process, we said that we should identify what is the launcher, okay? We know that if we put the launcher up front, saying that, hey, we have the launch opportunity here, it will really generate a lot more interest. So we decided we'll procure the launch opportunity for all the team in this project. We'll do the responsible for the launch selection and also the launch procurement. And then we debated among ourselves what's the good launcher. So at the end, we think that launching from ISS is the best, okay? First, the altitude is good, 350 kilometers. So we'll ensure that all the CubeSat will be launched and then they stay in orbit no more than 24 months and then they come down. We will not leave any space debris. And also going to ISS, there are many opportunities per year. Roughly, you're talking minimum 4 opportunities per year. And shipping to, like for launching ISS, is a very easy transport, okay? You just transfer to Houston, okay? And then there's a company that will do the integration, so it's very easy transport. And the cost is not much higher than other launcher, okay? And also we know that whenever you involve like astronaut doing all this activity, you get very high public relations opportunities, okay? Of course, we are aware that with ISS launch, you always have the limits on orbit inclination. But we think this is a small limitation compared to all the benefits. So that's why at the end, we decide to enter a direct contract with NanoRes, okay, that they handle the launch. We enter like a direct contract. So we procure the like certain number of U for all the CubeSat that we are going to launch with them. So after all this planning, we announced, we did an announcement opportunity in November 2017. Okay, so we started in 2016 working on it, debate among ourselves how to formulate this. So it took a bit of time to get all this approval. You have to remember we are a government agency, so we do have our own share of a bureaucracy. Okay, so we have to go through like all this like internal review, internal governance process. So that's why it took much longer than expected. So we launched this, we call AO, Announcement Opportunity, in November 2017. Luckily enough, we did receive like one proposal from each province. Okay, we were very happy when we saw that, okay, at least one proposal from each province. And for the 2 provinces, they have the largest population, Ontario and Quebec. We received multiple proposals, not only one. There are 3 proposals from each provinces, okay? And all these proposals have a also very nice outreach plan. And all proposals said that we are going to train at least 20 students. So these are all the things we are looking for, and these are all in the proposal, okay? So total, we received 17 proposals, okay? And then the original aim was like 13 CubeSat, but then we received 17 proposals. And since the 2 provinces, they submitted multiple proposals. So that's why we went back to the management saying that, can we have more to CubeSat? Because they're like Ontario, Quebec, there are multiple proposals. It will not be fair for those, they are much stronger competitors compared to other provinces, which we received only 1 proposal. So the management agreed. So that's why we took in 2 more proposals to make it 15 CubeSat altogether. okay? So all these proposal came in with a 1U, 2U, 3U idea, okay? Original proposal, we are looking at 37U all together. And after the selection, so total U will be only 32U. And this fit right into what we have planned in terms of when we have the negotiating the contract NanoWest, so we know that this is approximately the range we're looking at. So we were quite happy. So within our budget, within our plan, so everything fit quite well. And the proposed mission idea is interesting in the sense that we have somewhere modest to somewhere ambitious. Okay, there's some are purely educational, some have science, some technology, some astronomy. For example, this is one of the very interesting mission idea. Here, this is proposed by the University of Manitoba. Okay, they call the mission Iris. They want to launch a 3U CubeSat. Inside, they will have one tray of like geological samples. They're looking at 12 to 15 geological samples. Okay. In space, they'll be exposed to the deep space environment, okay? And on top here, on top of this tray, they'll put a camera. They'll take an image once a week to see whether there is any change to this geological sample, okay? Any change to the properties of these geological samples, okay? Not only that, inside there's intentionally left an empty space here. So they open this up to local secondary school, saying that let's have a competition, okay? And ask them to design something they call a sundial, gnomon, okay? So basically they say, ask the student design as a gnomon here, which will be a sundial. And then further that they say that now the student, they design the sundial, they ask them to start writing the script, saying that in the future, when there's like image taken, you have the shadow. Based on the shadow, tell us where's the sun. So now the student working hard, these are secondary school students, they're working hard to write their own algorithm to see how they can process the image data to get where's the sun position based on the shadow of the generated by the sundial. So this is a very interesting idea, right? They involve like not only that, they involve the primary school student by asking them for the mission patch design. So it's a very nice idea. They involve from primary school to secondary school and the university student that will be building this satellite. So this is one of the examples of the mission idea. So after we selected all these 15 CubeSats, so now we have to start thinking how we implement this project, okay? And our goal is really try to provide high quality training to all the students, okay? We are really aware that, okay, the teams, they don't have the same level of experience, okay? 5 teams have some spacecraft experience, but the other teams have never attempted a satellite project. We want to support the teams, but we know that we are very limited resource, okay? Also supporting 15 teams will be very difficult when you don't have that much resource. Not only that, as I mentioned earlier, Canada is big, okay? Geographical distribution of the team, okay? That means that we cannot afford to go to all the teams, okay? It will be very time consuming. Also, it will be very expensive. If we go to all the team to provide support, it's very expensive. So this is why we have to start right from the beginning and say, let's do it as much as we can through online, okay? So we create a series of webinars teaching the student, okay? The webinar will cover different subjects like how to build a spacecraft, how to test a spacecraft, what's EMC, what's EMI, what's space radiation, what's attitude control. We did launch a whole series of webinars covering all the subjects. And then we also told the teams that we will guide you through the standard spacecraft building process, like with milestones, with clear milestone. We simplify in the sense that there will be only 4 milestones: mission concept review, PDL, CDL, and flight readiness review. The PDL, CDL, and flight readiness review will also match the NASA payload safety review. So this is good. And also in all this review, we brought in our contractor NanoRes. okay? Because when we bring them in here in the review process, they will help us in the sense, tell the student, hey, there's something you have to pay attention to here, okay? This might not be like you might be kind of like violating the safety guideline and so on. So this is very good, okay? Further, we send a very clear message to the teams. The competition is over now, guys. Let's work together, okay? We want the team talk to each other. We don't want them to like just working in isolation, okay? So we say there's no competition. We must cooperate. We must collaborate with each other. That's why we create a Google site for Q&A for all the file depository. We encourage the communication among the team. We encourage sharing information and lessons learned. Then in January 2019, okay, we had our first mission concept review. Okay, this was the first opportunity for us to meet all the team in person, and also good assessment for us in the sense that now we want to see whether our plan was sufficient. And after the mission concept review, we adjusted our guidance strategy. We said that this is not sufficient, even the webinar using like online forums still not sufficient. We decided to create about the internship opportunity. We say we offer the teams, okay, we'll try to hire 3 to 5 students every term and bringing the student to work inside the Canadian Space Agency for 4 months. And then once they finish, they'll go back and they kind of like transfer the knowledge they gain here in the agency to their team, okay? We found this is a very effective, okay? When you bring a student working alongside with the experts, experienced engineer for 4 months, they really absorb a lot of the knowledge. And when they go back, they really do a good job to tell the team what's the proper way to get things done, you know? So we find really, really effective. And further, we decided to create an intensive training workshop at the space agency, okay? So we held this workshop in May 2019. Basically, we said that, look, we have 15 teams here. We offer you to bring in 3 students to come to the agency for 1 week, okay? We'll cover your travel expense, come to the agency for 1 week. During this 1 week, we'll teach you, all right, we'll have some special presentation. On top, we'll teach you how to do the hands-on work. Like for example, here you can see, we brought in the student to teach them the basic how to do the soldering, okay? How to build a harness, okay? And here we also show them how to do a vibration test, okay? So this is a tremendously successful, okay? Also, it's a very good opportunity for students to meet each other, okay? Probably this is the first time in Canada we put all students from all 10 provinces and 3 territories together in one venue, okay? It is really hard for Canada to do such an event. We did it. We're really happy with the outcome. So where we are now, okay, so after this workshop in May 2019, we have the PDL in October 2019. And by PDL, we can see the difference. Okay, we can see that the teams are much more mature now. They gain a very good confidence. They now understand how to do the CubeSat properly. Okay, especially we are very proud in the sense they understand what system engineering, why project management is very important for a project of this nature. Okay, and our Google site have more than 500 people. Okay, we have 500 students, also the professor. Okay, they have a lot of interchange, okay, exchange communication among them. All this went really well until COVID hit in March 2020. Okay, we were planning to have the CD around springtime 2020. Unfortunately, these were all canceled. All the campuses were locked down, so it was a big setback for all the teams. So the CDL was postponed, but eventually we managed to help them to back on track. Okay, so we had a CDL for all the team virtually in February and March this year. And teams are gradually getting back to the labs. Okay, now so some campuses are gradually reopened slightly. Overall, the schedule slipped by about 9 months, we have to say, okay? So basically, this is the schedule for this Canadian CubeSat project. We started around 2016, all went really well to PDL, and then everything, due to COVID, everything shifted to the right. So now we are hoping to launch them probably in the Q1 or Q2 in 2022. Okay, we will be launching them in 2 batches. Okay, so we expect some team will finish quicker, so we launch them first, and some team may take slightly longer time. Then we give them another 6 months to finish it. Then we launch in the second batch. So this is the overall summary of this what we achieved so far. Okay, we have 15 projects across Canada, more than 500 students involved, 3.2 million Canadian dollar, which is about roughly 2 million euro. Okay, this is like 2 million euro in terms of grant given to the 15 teams across Canada, not including the launch cost. Just the grants to the team is about 2 million euro for 15 teams, involving 26 universities and college. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. Now I'm ready for questions, or you want to wait until at the end?
Well, I guess we collect several questions, and then after both presentations, we will run the question and answer session. So directing questions to the respective presenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we can hear the second presentation this afternoon, which will be given by Dr. Luis Gomes. Dr. Luis Gomes has an extraordinary experience in Earth observation, collecting data from space, data treatment, and applications and services. He joined Service Satellite Technology in mid-90s, and since then worked at least on several problems in Earth observations. Since 2019, he is CEO in Clyde Space and works on services related to space observations, space data, and he will tell us about his view on new age of space data applications. And the title of his presentation is From Hardware to Services and Data, the Changing Focus of the Space Industry. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone. So thank you for the introduction. I've been working in space and particularly in applications of space for many years. And when I originally talked to Miguel about this talk, he asked me to give an overview of what we are doing both here at Clyde Space and in the UK. So I actually thought about focusing my presentation more on how things are changing and how do we see the industry changing. So I'll start by giving my view on what is happening. Assuming I can actually find my presentation. Sorry. So I will start by, there it is. I'm talking, I hope you can all see it, see the presentation. So I will start by describing a little bit how I've seen the industry changing. So we have seen that over the last 20 years or so, things have changed quite dramatically in our industry. So we started many years ago with an industry that was fairly small. It answered mostly the needs of government. It answered mostly the needs of scientific research organizations. But what we have seen in the last few years is a tremendous growth of the industry and how it is dominating many areas the commercial side is dominating many areas that in the past used to be the preserve of governments and institutions. And you'll see many statements like the ones I've on this slide that about the growth, this explosive growth of the industry. And sometimes I look at these numbers and I think to these as my old hat of working in the technology side. So I spent 21 years working in satellite technology, for instance, and working very much in the hardware side of the business. And when you actually look at that and you look at these numbers, you say, how are we actually doing this? How are we going to grow this much? And then you realize that actually a lot of this growth doesn't come from hardware. It doesn't come from building satellites, selling satellites, rockets. It comes from the applications that we actually use these satellites for. And that is an important aspect of understanding how our industry is evolving. And this is the changing of focus. These last 2 decades have seen us transitioning from an industry that was largely led by technology. So we were always designing new satellites, designing new capabilities. And then the application was almost an afterthought. So we'd come up with, we would design a new technology and we say, what payload can we put on it? What payload can we actually put on this satellite that justifies this kind of technology? Almost like we think about the solution first, and then we look for a problem that solves that solution, that needs that solution. And what we have seen is that we've started to change. So the industry is now a lot less led by technology, and the advent of organizations like the Satellite Applications Catapult in the UK or the Copernicus program in Europe, they have actually changed the focus from just the technology, just the satellites. Let's do a new shiny satellite. Let's try some new technology. They have changed that to what are we doing with that technology? What are the applications? What can we use that for? But more asking the question the other way around. It's asking, I've got these applications, I've got these needs for data, these data sets that I need, these services that I need. How do I service them? How do I actually design something that can answer these questions? And this change of focus is very important because this is what is really making space available, or data and services from space, really interesting for a lot of applications on Earth. And what we have seen is that as the hardware has become commoditized, it has been helping this transition. As we actually nowadays we can very easily buy all the components we need for a satellite. We spend a lot less time designing our computers, our radios. We can actually focus a lot more on the application. We can focus a lot more on what we are actually designing that satellite for. And that transition is quite important. These two things, this change of focus from just building technology and focus very much on the technology, spending a lot of time and effort in building new satellites ever more powerful and more capable, but without actually thinking too much about what they will deliver to us on Earth. Together with the fact that technology has become much more standardized, we now, you can come to a company like ours and you can actually build, you can buy all the components you need to build the satellites. I wouldn't say it's straightforward. Some people do believe it's much easier than it is. You still need to have knowledge and you still need to understand what you are doing. But the fact is it's much more accessible. And when you do this, you can actually start changing the focus. And changing the focus is important because we tend to forget how important space is for our day-to-day lives. I deal many times with people that come from outside the space industry. They are investors, they are journalists. And they have that view of space as going to the moon. They have the International Space Station. They have a view of space as Star Wars, Star Trek. So the view of space is as this detached thing from our lives, on our day-to-day lives. And it isn't. Space is incredibly important to everything we do. From helping to prevent forest fires, to help fight forest fires, to help manage the consequences, tracking ships in the world, but doing even more important things like, for instance, monitoring our food crop, monitoring our weather. All those critical items that we take for granted require space. So changing the focus from just doing hardware and doing very nice satellites and very nice spacecraft. Don't get me wrong. I like spacecraft. I like satellites. I love the technology, and a lot of my professional life has been about building cool pieces of technology. But the reality is, we have to deliver something that people actually need and that will improve their lives. And this change of focus, this change of mentality is quite important in delivering much more value to everyone from space. But obstacles remain. Despite all these changes, if you are a user here on the ground of data, and you have a nice idea and a nice business that delivers some information or some services to people, and you say, okay, I would like to use data from space. I would like to have some data. I would like to have satellites delivering me a data set because that will help my business on the ground. Your options have always been limited, and it's very much about, you either buy your own satellites, you go to a company that manufactures satellites, and you ask them, design me a satellite that produces this type of data or produces this type of service. That could be taking images of some specific region, or taking images of a certain specific band, wave band, or it could be a communication system, a specific type of communication system. And traditionally, you go to a manufacturer and you ask them to manufacture your satellites. And then they hand over the keys, and off you go. You operate your constellation or your satellite. But that has costs. It allows you have to have your own ground segment. You have to have your own people that know how to operate satellites. You have to take care of things like insurance, licensing. It is quite a long process. It's quite expensive, and it requires you to change the focus of your successful business here on Earth to now having to also handle and think about satellites. So many companies, many organizations are not interested in doing that. So the alternative was to buy the services, or to buy the data from some very limited data sellers and resellers around the world. I usually give an example. When I was just after I left university in Lisbon, I worked in a place called INETI, and I needed to acquire some images, some synthetic aperture radar images. And in those days, and that hasn't changed as much as that since then, if you wanted to buy, you could only buy an image that I think was 20 kilometers by 20 kilometers. And because of that, it was quite expensive. It was a large image. But in reality, I needed, it was a 200 kilometer by 200 kilometer image. There was a mosaic of images. And I didn't need that. I needed only a small percentage. I only wanted to process a bit. And even today, if you are trying to buy imagery, optical imagery, most companies will only sell you many square kilometers, even if all you want is to monitor a few fields somewhere on the surface of the Earth. So you can buy data, but it's usually you are buying the specification from someone else, and in a service level that is defined by someone else. It might not be what you need. So this has prevented many organizations, many companies around the world to actually offer more services. And it has been a limitation to the kind of things that we can do. And things like, for instance, Copernicus, the Copernicus program addressed that by making data available in much bigger quantities, free data to everyone. But still, if you talk to many users, they don't have enough data. They need a lot more. They need a lot more data sets. And large organizations have, with many stakeholders, have to usually be very careful with which data sets they are producing, which kind of, what they're offering, because they have to answer many different questions. And so for them, it's sometimes difficult to actually supply all the data needs, all the services needs. And this is where we are seeing now the industry starting to pick up. With the reduction in the cost of satellites, due to the fact that we are now using much more standardized systems, we are doing smaller systems, smaller satellites, and launch costs have come down quite a lot. we are now able to actually offer many more solutions. But this aspect of offering what people need without forcing them to actually own their own satellites, buy their own satellites, operate, having ground stations, all of that is quite important. And this is the transition that a company like ours is doing. What AAC Clyde Space has set ourselves, our objective is to actually make this much easier and make it much more accessible to people to actually build, to get the data they need to build their business based on data, on the service they need, without actually having to invest huge amounts in things that are not the core of their core business. They are not their core business. They are not the things they want to focus every day. So I will now describe you a little bit what we are doing and how we are addressing these. And just to give you a brief overview, as a group of companies, we have expanded. So some of you might know us as one company doing satellites, but the reality is over the years we have been growing our business, and we have been growing by basically merging different companies together. So what we have is, under this group, we now have a group of companies, all with specialist skills that when we put them all together, bring together a much stronger proposition in terms of offering data services to users. So we continue to offer hardware. I always say that we are our bedrock, our foundation is good quality, well-designed hardware. Let's be clear, you need that. Your satellites have to be good. If they're not good, there is no point in doing what you are doing. But if you have that, you can then build on that. And what we have been doing over the last 2 years is actually bringing together, or over the last 3 years actually, we've been bringing together these skills, the capability, the different know-how from different people, different companies to actually build something that can offer to the market, not just hardware, but also the services, the data, the things that people are really asking us for. And we are now spread all over the world. I won't go into too much detail about these, but you can see we now have companies all over the world. And again, as I say, this is about making sure that these companies together, they all build something that the result is bigger than just adding the different companies. We are not doing this just about growing. This is not about growth per se. This is about actually bringing together different capabilities, different abilities to do something much bigger. And what do we offer? Well, we continue to offer space products and components. As I say, this is the bedrock. Well-designed computers, well-designed batteries, well-designed power systems, well-designed attitude control systems. These make the base, the foundation of what we do. And that allows us to actually do space missions that are robust, that operate correctly in space. Sometimes there is this vision that, as I said before, that because we are now in this commoditized space environment, it's easy, you just buy a bunch of parts, you put them together and you launch them. And usually that doesn't work very well. So you still need to have that know-how, you still need to have the understanding of how these things come together. And we sell this we have a series of customers, and we work with a series of customers and partners. These are just an example. And this has been the traditional business that we have been in, and like these, many other companies in space. But what we have introduced over the last 2 years is what we call space data as a service. The objective in here is to break that need to, if you want your data, you either buy satellites or you have to go and work with someone else that will sell you what they want to sell you. So what we are doing is we are working with customers that have a need, and we are understanding that need. We engage with them, we talk to them, they talk to us, and then we say, okay, we will take care of those satellites. We will design what you need. We'll put it in orbit, we'll operate it, and we'll just provide you what the data or the service you are looking for. It's not just data, it's not we deciding what they need. We are actually having that dialogue. We are actually, and to some extent, the way we do it is not their concern. The way we do it is up to us. These customers, what they need, they tell us, this is what I need, this is when I need it, and we go and do it. And then we deliver that data or that service. And effectively, this is about allowing people to focus on their core business. If you have a great business providing farmers with information, that's your business. We will help you on doing that. And I think this is a change in the focus and change in mentality that we are seeing across the industry. That is actually suddenly opening the doors for a whole new generation of applications, to a whole new universe of ideas, of people saying, oh, I could really do with some hyperspectral data from some lake somewhere in Asia, for instance, because I have this application, I can actually go and see what algae are there, and then I can tell the fishermen, local fishermen, if they can fish or not in those waters, for instance. And we can deliver that. And so the idea is to change and to somehow break these. Space is a very difficult thing to do, or is very difficult to work in space. So I can't actually access that data. No, you can. We can offer those capabilities. And as I say, we're not the only ones doing this. We have started it already. I like to think that we are ahead of others. But the reality is that this will change dramatically the way we access data, we access services from space. And it will make it much more prevalent in day-to-day life. And I will just give you some examples. I won't go into the detail, but I'll give you some examples that we are working on in this mode. And the first one is something that we are doing with the US company Orbcom, and it's about tracking ships around the world. And most people are familiar with AIS, Automatic Identification System. It is used globally. All ships above a certain size in the world have to have one of these transponders. And they have to communicate usually with coastal stations or other ships to tell them, I'm here, I'm this big, I'm going in this direction and at this speed. And this started as an aid, a navigation aid, so that ships don't, or safety aid, so ships don't collide with each other. And at some point we started using it from space. We can actually capture those signals from space, and we can actually get a global picture of all the shipping in the oceans. And this is not only important for safety at sea, but it is critical nowadays for law enforcement. We want to see that people are in certain regions and not others. We want to actually know what some ships are doing if we have suspicions that they're not doing something very good. But it also helps us, for instance, to manage better our fleet. So when we route ships around the oceans, we can actually decide, we can measure where they're going, we can assess things like pollution, for instance, and we can improve the way we use shipping on the globe. Now, there are many ways of accessing this data from space, but with Orbcom, what they said to us is, look guys, we want this data, these are the parameters of what we need. And we said, okay, leave it with us. We'll now actually go and design your system. And we designed 2 satellites, and we'll be launching the first one soon. And the idea there is that we now just deliver them the data that they need. So they don't have to care, they don't have to concern themselves with ground station operators. All they will get is in their servers, they will get the messages they need, and then they can run that through their analytics software. We can use our expertise, but also our infrastructure. We have ground stations, we have people that can manage these satellites. So we can do that for them. And that enables them to focus on their core business. That is not running satellites, is actually providing this information to coast guards and to companies around the world. And another one, if you look further away, so this is, some people say this is the next generation of AIS. In reality, is a different system, but uses the same baseline. It's just, it allows us to actually do two-way communication. So you can actually not only receive messages from ships around the world, but you can actually send messages back. And again, we are taking on the development of this satellite. We'll build it, we'll operate it. We have a partner in Saab, they developed the payload, and then Orbcom will benefit from that data and from those services. So this way of working I see it as becoming more and more common in the space industry. We are taking away the need for companies that have very successful businesses on the ground here on Earth, to take away the need for them to actually have to get involved in what is still a complex industry. Space is still a complex place. And as you go forward, you can see that these constellations, we are working on constellations now that are multi-capability. So we can offer not just AIS data, but we'll be offering hyperspectral data next year. And we offer other capabilities to different customers. So the growth of this industry, this is where I see the growth of our industry going, but also the way we are going to engage much more in helping people to have better lives on Earth. And just to complete, last year we actually signed a public-private partnership with the European Space Agency, sponsored by the UK Space Agency. And this is called the Expansion Program. And what this is going to do is to actually develop the tools, the frameworks, to do an enhanced version of this, of space data as a service, of services from space. So what we are looking is not only how do we build faster and quicker satellites. It's not so much about the technology, but is how do you use that technology better. But then we focus very much on how do we then manage the system, how do we capture the information, how do we distribute it. So there is a very large part of this that is about how we actually provide the services, how do we actually deliver the data, how do we actually engage with the customer so that they actually get what they need. And this is very much how we see the future developing, is this relationship where space companies like ourselves are not just doing hardware and then letting someone else exploit it. No, it's actually this holistic system where it's almost seamless, where we design, deliver this data, and then there are companies that pick up the data and the service and they use it, and you'll never see breaks. You'll never actually see places where you hand over satellites to someone else and then they have to go and sort it out. And we see this as growing. So this is my last slide, and I was I'm just going to close here. So just to say that as our industry evolves, we'll become more and more integrated in many of the applications that you see on the ground. But this integration will become very transparent. So you'll never know if your data or if your service comes from a satellite, which satellite it came from. That will become less and less noticeable. A bit like with navigation services that are omnipresent, but we never even think about it. We will start to see that in more and more of these services. So I hope this was of some interest. This is how I believe that the industry is evolving. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was great. And I guess we can have now a short question and answer session. I will try to resume a number of questions in one. And first question to Alfred Ng. Cici from Hannah writes, brilliant presentation, Dr. Alfred, which I join this opinion. There is already a large number of small satellites projects in Africa. How could we connect these fragmented initiatives across several countries in Africa, building upon your CubeSat competition concept? We have limited funds for academia. How could we attract industry to help funding this project if there is a commercial interest involved? And related to this question also, how from Nkosi from South Africa, how can emerging economies with very limited financial and human resource and notorious lack of space infrastructure can develop similar initiative. And then from Brazil, also the question about, well, it is a similar question. How can we develop similar projects ourselves?
Okay, yes, these are very good questions. I totally understand where this question coming from. In my personal humble opinion, I think there is a role for government here. Okay, the space is, no matter now it is how easy it is, at the end of the day, the government has a role to play here to help the academia. Okay, because the last mile to space remains still very challenging, expensive. You also have to think about the regulatory issue like the licensing. Okay, so that's why government cannot be hands-off totally. If they really want to build the space capacity, they must involve the government. Okay, this is the first part. The second part is that the CubeSat committee is surprisingly very open. Okay, you look at that, there are so many online resources available already everywhere in the world. And if you reach out to those experts, people, many times you get surprising, they are very open to help you, to give you the response. Okay, likewise, we are open. Okay, you can reach me. Okay, as I said, that we have prepared a lot of online materials. We'll be happy to share with you. Okay, there's no like special intellectual property. What we have done is really kind of like package all this open source information, package it into some kind of teaching material for students. So we'll be happy to help out, okay, we can. So I think knowledge is available everywhere. So these are things that you can think about, how to take advantage of what's available out there and how to get the government involved. I think the government has to involve, okay? Then the next part is you have to bring some expertise again, right? Likewise, as I said, go search online, talk to, like, send a cold email to those people. There's so many people, you'll be surprised, they'll be very willing to like chip in to help you out. You'll be very surprised that all over the world. Okay, so just don't limit to what you have inside your country. Look outside the boundary. This is my message.
Thank you. The next question is to Luis Gomes from Brazil. Thanks for your fantastic presentation. You said that there are several barriers that hamper the uptake of space. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that and list some solutions applicable to emerging economies?
Yes, the barriers, they continue to be there are two different barriers. There are the ones about trying to develop, for instance, a national industry of around space that some countries are doing, but of course it's a big endeavor. It's not an easy thing. You need to actually actually have all the components for that industry. But then there are others, that is when you try to actually use space, when you try to actually to use data for your own applications, it becomes quite difficult sometimes because you might not have the data you need. I give an example. Many years ago, I used to work quite closely with the Nigerian Space Agency on a few projects for Nigeria. And one of the things we were building was Earth observation satellite. And one of the things I tried just out of curiosity was to try to look for imagery from Nigeria, so that you could find on commercial satellites. And because the market wasn't very big, and because it's challenging in terms of cloud cover, you could find hardly any high resolution imagery of Nigeria back then. So for certain countries, although there were satellites that were capturing high resolution imagery around the world, they tend to focus on areas of high value commercial. So for like North America or Europe, where you can actually find people that will pay quite premium prices for those. So many times the uptake of data, of space data and services for countries is low because they can't find on the market. There are no commercial providers of that information, of that data, of those services. And this is why the kind of models we are proposing now in a more hybrid model where we tailor services specifically to organizations or to companies or countries, you can actually get what you need without having to do the huge investments that you had in the past of starting an industry from scratch. That can be quite costly and quite difficult and delays your process. One of the big objectives is that we can also be quicker. We can react much quicker to the needs. So the barriers are at several levels, but I think definitely the lack of commercial interest many times has not allowed certain projects to take over or to be implemented. And so some countries or some regions that are not seen as so commercially attractive, for instance, suffer from that. And so they don't get the data they need, they don't get the service they need. So, but I think we can now help. We now have the tools to help in that regard and to make it easier to access the data and the services you need from space.
Thank you. Question for Alfred from Tony Sefton. Wondering how you plan to maintain the momentum going forward after this initial phase of the project?
This is a very good question. Okay, we heard from teams saying that, oh, we have invested through this project, we invested in a ground station, we invested in a small laboratory. How do we make it sustainable? A very good question. Indeed, we have the intent to relaunch this project again. Okay, we have been planning on this. The only thing I have to remind you is the bureaucracy. Okay, we have been so successful that the management decided to add in more bureaucracy. So this is why we have not been able to release the next round of competition. Okay, now they kind of like say, oh, okay, we have to be put more constraint on what we can do with the team. So we are still working on it, but the whole idea is that we hope to make this like a regular year thing, once every 3 years. We think this will be enough to maintain like the sustainable like activity for the whole Canada from coast to coast. This is our intent.
Wow, thank you. Now, question to Dr. Can the data provided by these satellites developed with a focus on a specific customer be provided to other customers with similar requirements, or new mission must be created for this other customer?
It depends very much. It depends very much on the customer, and so if a customer actually absorbs the entire data set, the entire capacity of those satellites, yes. Sometimes there are also aspects of intellectual property, because they might have actually developed a payload, or there might be a specific payload. But in general, the objective in the longer term is that actually these are multi-purpose satellites that can actually provide data sets to a variety of customers, particularly in certain areas. There are certain specific services, like for instance, machine-to-machine communications, where these are always going to be very dedicated, because there are specific protocols that are being used by these customers for that service. But there are other services where you can see in the future having a more generic constellation, where you deliver the same service to different customers that might need that. But there will always be some that are very specific to a customer that needs a specific data set and a specific service. So it will always be a mixture. So I think the answer is it depends.
Okay. Well, the next question is from Hernan Villagran to Alfred. Given Canada's geographical environmental and ocean-related realities, in which extent the youth involved in Luis CubeSat project showed and or express any concern on Earth's current status, speeding up climate and global environment breakdowns as the basis of their project. How many projects are strongly focused on Earth observation applications? What should be improved?
Okay, so I was doing my own counting off my head. So there were 6 teams they proposed related to Earth observation application. Okay, one looking at like building a multispectral sensor to detect forest fire. One mission is called Sputnik. Okay, basically they want to do high resolution imaging of potato farms. Okay, the province of Prince Edward Island in Canada is kind of like they produce half the potato in Canada. So there's a mission called Sputnik. So they want to like have also multispectral camera looking at like the growth of the potato in that province. And then there is one mission looking at GPS reflectometry, okay, look at Atlantic Ocean, GPS reflectometry. They want to demonstrate this idea. There's one mission looking at like the, let me see, there's a limb-looking camera looking at like the Earth glow. So in short, my answer is that yes, it shows that like 6 out of 15 missions, they are kind of like Earth observation related. That shows there's a strong interest among students in Earth's observation, okay, about climate change. There definitely, there is a very strong interest, okay.
Thank you. Next question is to Dr. Gomes. How industry could help countries such as Nigeria to develop endogenous capacity for developing their own space data solutions? And I would like to add to this question my own. Do you see any applications or any future for nanosat missions for Earth observation and providing data for this, since such missions are much cheaper, and maybe there is a way to use these cheaper missions to build the know-how and experience.
So starting by the end, yes, the kind of satellites for instance, we do are nanosatellites. We tend to focus very much on the cube format, going up to about 16U, but the bulk of our satellites are around the 6U, 3 and 6U. So yes, huge applications for Earth observation. I think we have come a long way since the days that we needed very large satellites to do Earth observation. For instance, one of the companies that is in our group of companies, Omnisys, is a company that has actually made the sensors, weather sensors that in the past were much bigger. They are now, you can actually fit them in small satellites. One of the companies we work with, another company also doing that kind of sensor, Orbital Microsystems, they have designed a radiometer, a microwave radiometer that actually fits on a 6U satellite or even on a 3U. So you have come a long way to be able to do Earth observation from small platforms. Of course, physics is physics. You still need big apertures for certain instruments. So despite the very optimistic views of some people that they can do very high resolution on very small satellites, you still need a fairly large apertures for that. So you can do it. And you see, for instance, the explosion in radar on small spacecraft. Nowadays, you have many companies and organizations doing radars in 100 kilos. In the past, we were talking about tons for those kind of satellites. So definitely, nanosatellites have a huge role to play there. On the specific aspect on Nigeria and other countries, but specifically Nigeria is a reality that I know fairly well. I worked with NASDRA many years, the National Space Agency. And Nigeria actually had a very strong program for the development of space capabilities and spaceability among its students, among its engineers. So I think what we can help now, and particularly with this change of focus of data, is that you don't necessarily need to develop the full national industry around space. You can actually focus, for instance, in developing certain payloads or developing applications. And that is where it can help, not only for Nigeria, but many other countries, the fact that they can actually get the customized and tailored service they need, or tailored data they need, the data sets they need, without needing to actually either develop satellites from scratch or having to go and buy very expensive satellites from someone else. So you can actually do that, and that will open many other applications in countries like Nigeria. So that's where I see it being an enabler. I think you are on mute, Anna.
There is also one general question, not directed to anybody personally. What innovative ocean governance binding global sustainability and Earth observation, including the modern Argus system during and after COVID-19? Well, everything at once, so.
Alfred, would you like to
repeat that question again? I don't see this question.
What innovative ocean governance binding global sustainability and Earth observation, including the modern Argus system during and after COVID-19?
I have no answer to this one.
Basically, I think COVID is, well, maybe something not very related to the core of the question, but can you see any innovative ocean governance built on Earth observation and use of modern technology? I would reformulate it like this.
I can have a stab at that question, at an answer. I can start. Yes, and first, a lot of what we are doing around AIS, but also about VDS for the future, and what many other people are doing in terms of, for instance, having monitoring. We now are developing satellites that monitor ships much better. Actually, Canada and Canadian Space Agency is one of the great pioneers of that with RadarSat. And we are now having the assets. We didn't have those until a few years ago. So when we had one or two satellites, good radar satellites, it was very difficult, for instance, to do continuous monitoring of our oceans. But we are now developing a network of big and small satellites that is able to do that, not just with radar, but also with looking for emissions from ships. And so that is actually going to create a whole new environment for the maritime safety and security. So we'll be able to actually monitor ships continuously. We will have much more tools to actually look at what vessels are doing. Things like, for instance, the new emissions. So, for instance, like what GHGSat is doing in Canada, looking for emissions from ships and from oil platforms and oil rigs. That will create a whole new environment and a whole new set of tools that will allow us to monitor much better what people are doing in 2/3 of our planet, where we actually don't, as we know, for instance, in certain oceans like the Indian Ocean, we hardly, in the Southern Pacific, we hardly do any monitoring, let alone surveillance or security. So I think we are actually now developing those tools. There is going to be an explosion in the number of assets we can use, and I think that is that question actually has it's quite a good question because we are at a turning point when it comes to maritime monitoring.
Mhm. Okay. Question from Milton Campbell. If a country decides to buy a satellite instead of developing it, why not invest in the purchase of images or even services? Wouldn't it be even simpler and even affordable to speak?
Yes and no. I think it depends. It depends what you are trying to achieve, and particularly buying satellites sometimes is done out of necessity. As I said, for instance, in the case of Nigeria a few years ago, and this is not that long ago, this is about 10, 15 years ago, you could not buy the imagery over Nigeria. If you wanted to do a mapping of the country, you did not have the data available. So to some extent, it made sense for the Nigerian government at the time to invest in a high resolution in those days, satellite. Of course, there are other options. Sometimes you do not get the data you need, so you can't buy it. So the alternative traditionally is to buy your own satellites. But that is expensive, yes, it's quite expensive. So, so you need alternatives.
Okay, and now the time is running, and we have the last question maybe from Musa from Senegal. What are the sweet spots, low-hanging fruits for young entrepreneurs to start their space businesses in Africa?
I don't know. Alfred, would you like to answer that, or
No, I'm really a government official, so commercial is your specialty, not my specialty.
I can have a step. Again, over the years I worked in Africa, and to some extent, Africa is probably the continent that benefits mostly from space. Space technology is a very large continent. With very diverse ecosystems and very complex problems to solve, and South Africa actually I usually consider it it's a little secret of potential for space. Is one of those continents where space can do a phenomenal can give a phenomenal contribution for people's lives. And there are many initiatives going on. I would say for entrepreneurs to start, I think there are many things around communications, around asset tracking that needs to be sorted. Sometimes even not obvious. Sometimes might not mean actually go and build satellites. Might be about using existing capabilities that already exist. And the same, for instance, on Earth observation, there are plenty of capabilities already in place. Exploiting them, exploring them, and use them for the benefit of the people could be quite an interesting way forward for many of these entrepreneurs. So you don't need, and again, I think this is sometimes difficult for people like myself who our life is about working in space. We want to do cool satellites, but sometimes that is not actually where space brings the value. Is about using what already exists, and so that might be the low-hanging fruit, more than go and try to build satellites.
Thank you. Well, I'm reading more questions, and all of them are starting with thank you for extraordinary presentation. Thank you for very interesting information. So the discussion is very interesting. Well done. So I think it means that our session was 90 minutes well spent with very interesting lectures and great company. And this 90 minutes is more or less the period of low Earth satellites. So a satellite completed its orbit while we were here discussing the future of such technology and applications. And I hope we all got a little bit closer to the future applications, the future services, and future solutions, both for industry, for companies, for customers, for academy, and looking at the audience that gathered here from all over the world, I think we are on good way. And I again thank the organizers for inviting us. I congratulate you with the idea and application and good organization of this series of presentations. And thank you from us, from presenters, from me, of course, and from I understand that the audience is also quite satisfied. Thank you so much. And this
Thank you.
session.
Thank you
Very much
for the invite again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.